Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, your place for all those filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. This is episode number 196 of this icy yet spicy sports podcast. And in this episode, we're still here in the coldest depths of the freezer with our Old Icebox, ready for another retro review. This time around, we're not going too far back to the past, as we're only going 5 years back to the future into 2019 for a retro review of another major wrestling event that happened on this date, April 7, 2019, and that was WrestleMania 35. Not too far ago, even though it feels like a blur, yeah, this WrestleMania took place, ironically, on this current WrestleMania weekend as we speak. So, that being said, we're wrapping up our little unofficial WrestleMania retro review week here on Very Cold Lasagna. Yeah, kind of weird that we're doing this, but I mean, I guess, yeah, it kind of substitutes, like I said, an actual WrestleMania 40 review, because I just refuse to do that because the lead up, the build, it's ass. Like I said in the last episode, the build to this WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, it's butt cheeks. It is little butt cheeks, ladies and gentlemen. Other than, the Bloodline versus Cody and Seth, and then the night 2 main event with Roman and Cody, depending on what happens there. But I just don't feel like reviewing WrestleMania 40. It's I guess you like to say, it pushed my interest. It pushed me out of my interest. So it's like I have no interest in reviewing that show. Simple as that. So like I said, instead, we're going to do on each night of WrestleMania, I've already uploaded the WrestleMania 25 retro review. And obviously in this episode on night 2, here you go with a retro review of WrestleMania 35. So these last 3 episodes we've done the retro review of WrestleMania 1 in 1985. And then we traveled forward in time to the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania in 2009 in the last episode. And like I said, here we are with a retro review of WrestleMania 35 in 2019. Before we get started with this retro review, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure you follow the show on social media, on X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. For all my audio-only listeners out there listening to this wherever you get your podcasts, Apple or Spotify, make sure you rate and review the show 1 to 5 stars. Leave me some positive thoughts or some feedback to improve the show. Whichever you want to do to boost up the listeners out there, or whatever, listens out there. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, leave a comment down below with your takes on each and every episode topic that's going on in Very Cold Lasagna. With this episode specifically, it's our retrospective of WrestleMania 35 that happened 5 years ago in 2019. And I'm pretty sure for some of you, you still may have some thoughts on that show, but I digress. Make sure you share this with your friends, share this with your family members, share this with a stranger, share this with anyone you want to share this with, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly, about Very Cold Lasagna. And one last thing, I don't know if you want to call this a milestone, 4 episodes away from the 200th episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I don't know, for all my active listeners out there, you want to do something for that 200th episode or not. But if you want to do something, you want to do something cool, like a little, something, throw it out there in the comments, throw it out there on social media, send me a DM, send me something on Instagram or X. Who knows? Either way, if you want to do something for you want to do something to commemorate the 200th episode here on Very Cold Lasagna, I'd be down for it. But anyway, now let's take a look back in time. Let's grab our old icebox, grab our cold lasagnas. Don't eat them, by the way. I'm frozen. But yeah, let's take a look now at an event that happened 5 years ago in MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, not too long ago, on April 7th, 2019, WrestleMania 35. So here we are, April 7th, 2019, 5 years ago, before night 2 of this current WrestleMania, the 35th annual WrestleMania took place on this date. This was announced a year in advance at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, which played host to this event after previously doing so just 6 years prior at WrestleMania 29. This was the 6th WrestleMania in particular that was hosted within the New York area, with the previous times being WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 10, 20, and 29. So, yeah, WrestleMania is a hot spot in New York. So, yeah, this WrestleMania, well, let's just get it out of the way now. It was a pretty mixed bag for some people. But for me personally, you'll get my thoughts at it towards the end of this review. But let me also say this. I hate this theme song. I hate the theme song for this show. It is so cringe, and it does not fit the song. It does not fit the overall arcing theme of WrestleMania. It's supposed to be the Super Bowl of wrestling. But when you hear something like "I wanna think of blah 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 blah, na 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 na," whatever, I don't know what the lyrics are, but it sounds so corny. It sounds so cheesy. It's annoying. The song's called "Love Runs Out" by One Republic. Again, I don't know the lyrics because I don't listen to a lot of like modern radio songs nowadays, other than like The Weeknd, I guess. But it does not fit at all. Like, I mean, probably my taste in music is terrible, but this was a very bad song to be a part of WrestleMania. Like, it just didn't fit with it. It just didn't fit with the show. It really didn't. Or maybe it did, considering what we're gonna talk about with this review. So anyway, a little bit of fun facts for with this WrestleMania in particular. Alexa Bliss, a WWE superstar, got to host this event, and you got to see her throughout the night. And you also had Elias, who had a drifter guitar gimmick. He announced before the show that he was going to have a special musical performance. So Elias, who played the guitar for all the WWE fans out there, he was actually pretty good at it too. He was going to do a special WrestleMania performance in front of 8,000 people. At the time, I was a big fan of Elias, so I didn't see this back 5 years ago, but now that I was gonna get to see it, it was gonna be interesting. Several celebrities were involved in this event, as per tradition with WrestleMania, and there's another interesting thing that happened in this WrestleMania, and that actually happened during the pre-show, and it involved one Pat McAfee, who during the time this was only one of his first few appearances. Pat McAfee got into a little backstage issue with Michael Cole, and Michael Cole was not like, he was just like, co-workers. He was just co-workers with McAfee, and he still is, but he's not really like that, that bro. He wasn't really that bro with McAfee during that time, because according to McAfee 5 years ago in 2019, he got into this big blow up with Cole because of his attire at WrestleMania. The infamous tuxedo shorts that he wore. That was pretty much the talk of the town on social media, on Twitter, and all throughout the show, all the kickoff at least. So Michael Cole got pissed at him that he was dressed like that in front of like various WWE officials like Vince McMahon, and McAfee was like so mad that Michael Cole was just like lambasting him, criticizing him like all angrily. So he threatened to quit just before the show. But McMahon was like all chill with it. He was all like in love with it because he was showing a picture of LeBron James. He had like a similar outfit at the 2018 finals. So, okay, no problem. You're good to go. So Michael Cole apologized, and well, here we are 5 years later. It brought us one of the best commentary duos currently in wrestling. And if things didn't pan out the way they did, if McMahon was not cool with that, or if he got pissed at as well, I'm like, man, just imagine. But I'm actually glad that McAfee, McMahon, we're all hip. They were still all hip by the end of it. So it all turned out. I'm glad it turned out. So now let's get into the actual match card itself. And we're still around the pre-show. The pre-show starts with a Cruiserweight Championship match between Buddy Murphy and Tony Nese. Ironically enough, they're not in the company anymore. But 5 years ago, they were. And how this match was set up, well, they had an 8-man tournament on 205 Live. Yeah, if you don't know what 205 Live was, don't worry. I didn't either. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I did see 205 Live when I went to a WWE show 2 years prior to this WrestleMania. And yeah, I did not like it. It was after a SmackDown, but I digress. Yeah, 205 Live was basically a Cruiserweight only show. And the general manager was Drake Maverick. And there was this 8-man tournament to determine Buddy Murphy's challenger for WrestleMania. Tony Nese won that tournament. And, well, this match was basically your typical indie spot fest match. A bunch of flips, kicks, near falls. And Tony Nese won this boring whack and old type match with a running knee to the corner on Buddy Murphy. And he won the Cruiserweight Championship. So, yeah, nothing much to say there. Other than, well, yeah, they're no longer in the company. They're in AEW now. So then we had the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale. Some of the notable participants in this match were Mickie James, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and the Riot Squad, which consisted of Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, and Liv Morgan. There's an interesting factoid about this match, and that was revealed, I think it was by Mandy Rose years later, that Asuka, Mandy, and Sonya were not supposed to be in this match. They were actually supposed to face each other for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which was now known as the Women's World Championship. They were actually supposed to face each other for the SmackDown Women's title on the main show, or I don't know where it's supposed to be anyway. But there was a certain change that happened weeks prior that caused them to be here instead. We'll talk more about that change much later on in this review. So, as for this match, it was another one of those that was announced a week prior to the show, or just like days before. And this is actually the second and so far last WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale. I'm not sure if any of you remembered the initial inaugural WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale when it was first called the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royale, and that garnered a whole shit ton of controversy back at WrestleMania 34, and then they changed it to the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale, and that trophy, yeah, that was an interesting, that was a choice trophy design. So anyway, for this match, you had Lillian Garcia, the legendary ring announcer, and the ring announcer I grew up with. She returned to announce this matchup, and as for the match itself, I mean, nothing too particularly interesting happened. You had Naomi, the previous year's Battle Royale winner. She got eliminated midway through, so we were guaranteed a new winner. And the final three saw Asuka, Sonya Deville, and Sarah Logan of the Riot Squad be in the final moments of this match. Deville was eliminated by Asuka, and Asuka was eliminated immediately by Sarah Logan. And Sarah Logan, she thought she had won the match. But I didn't hear no bell because in came in Carmella. I don't remember her being not eliminated though during this matchup. And yeah, she never got eliminated, and they had a tussle. And in the end of that tussle, Carmella super kicked Logan off the apron to win the second and so far only Women's Battle Royale at WrestleMania. Again, not great, just like the previous year. The sequel was just as boring. I mean, not being S-y, not being the S word, but I'm just stating the obvious that, yeah, this is not exactly a good match. And here we are 5 years later. You had this hashtag going around of hashtag Battle Royale for WrestleMania, yet the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale was on a SmackDown and not necessarily on a WrestleMania. Like, are people this dense? Like why did we have that hashtag going? Like, I get it. Like, your faves, including mine, we're not on this WrestleMania 40, but this hashtag's not going to do anything. Like, let's be real. And also the fact that has the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale winner gone on to do anything really? Like, look at the very first winner, Cesaro. He didn't do jack shit. with that push. Look at the Big Show. He didn't do anything with that. Look at Baron Corbin. It took him a long while to get it to do anything substantial. And then I don't remember who else won the Andre. I don't really care. But anyway, you get my point. These battle royales haven't done anything for these wrestlers. And well, obviously none of these women's wrestling battle royales have done anything. So I'm just saying that was the hashtag really necessary? No, not back then, if he even had it, and not now. So I'm just saying. Then you had the Raw Tag Team Champions, FTR, who were formerly known as the Revival, take on Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. So again, one of these other matchups that was set up on the Raw before WrestleMania, and that was pretty much that. So Ryder took a beating for much of this matchup, and he finally got a hot tag in to his partner, Kurt Hawkins, who they kept stating that he had an unlucky streak of 269 straight losses. Like, I don't really remember this at all. I was kind of vividly watching WWE during this time, actually all of wrestling during this time, and I'm like, I don't remember this at all. And then, the New Jersey crowd was red hot for him. The end of the match saw all four guys give each other hard bumps on the floor, including a brain buster from Scott Dawson to Hawkins. And then you had Dawson bringing his ass back into the ring. But it turned out to be a possum play by Kurt Hawkins, who used the deadly roll up to win the Raw Tag Team titles for him and Zack Ryder and end his long ass undefeated streak. So here we are. It's only the pre-show. I'm 3 matches in, and I'm only thinking to myself, was WWE and all of wrestling like this bad as I remember back in 2019? Was it this bad, ladies and gentlemen? Like, give me your memories of wrestling in 2019. It was only 5 years ago, and I'm just thinking, even as a casual wrestling fan, was it this bad? Like, as I remember it to be? Like, if I remember correctly, like, actually I do remember this correctly. When I was in my life in 2019, I was in college. I was still in college, trying to get that degree. But, obviously I was still trying to keep in touch with wrestling, but it's like, was it this bad? Was it this terrible? Like, holy hell. I mean, obviously not, I wasn't as in tune with pro wrestling as I was, like, well, back in my earlier years, but it's like, shit, like, what happened here? What has happened here? But anyway, I don't want to go into a whole tangent about that because we have another pre-show match to talk about. And that was the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale. Not too many notable participants because all you had was Matt and Jeff Hardy, Chad Gable, Saturday Night Live actors Colin Yost and Michael Shea, and Braun Strowman. This was the 6th annual Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal since its inception back at WrestleMania 30. But like I said with the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale, this hasn't really meant anything. And in terms of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale, this hasn't meant anything since WrestleMania 31. But it at least had a kind of central storyline going around it because with this WrestleMania, the central storyline with this Andre Battle Royale, it involved Saturday Night Live actors Yost and Shea appearing like a month around before WrestleMania, and they were questioning professional wrestling. They were questioning like, oh, why is this a thing, or whatever it was. And Braun Strowman started a feud with them, confronting them very physically and choking them out. And then the next week on a Raw that they were there, they tried to apologize to Braun Strowman. They bought him a brand new car, but Braun Strowman would destroy the car. And then 2 weeks later, a little bit out before WrestleMania, the Saturday Night Live actors were challenged by Braun to enter this battle royale. They both accepted on their behalfs, and well, here we were. So yeah, not a whole lot happened in this Andre Battle Royale, just like 5 years later when they had another Andre Battle Royale. So for the most part, Michael Shea and Colin Yost were hiding under the ring right as the match started, and Braun was trying to find them I'm actually not trying. Well, he did try to find him at first, but then he's just like, oh, fuck it. I'm just going to like go ham on everybody. So most of this match was a bunch of nothing. And it came down to Braun and the Hardy Boys as part of the final 5. And then once the Hardys were trying to eliminate Braun Strowman, both Colin and Michael came back from outside, from under the ring, and then they came back into the ring to try and help Matt and Jeff. But unfortunately, that didn't work, and then the Hardys got eliminated by Braun, and, well, Colin and Michael were about to go bye-bye. They're about to get these hands, which was Braun Strowman's tagline 5 years prior. So he had these weird antics where Colin tried to send in his therapist after Braun, but that failed. Michael tried to get himself eliminated, but Braun wouldn't let him do that. He wanted to do that himself. And then Colin Yost nearly got Braun Strowman eliminated. But that didn't happen. And Braun went on to eliminate Yost onto everybody. And yeah, he won the Useless Memorial Battle Royale. So thank goodness we didn't have to see Yost and Shay after that because, well, yeah, it was cringe. Their appearances were cringe, as well as this Battle Royale. But oh wait, like I said, it was on WrestleMania SmackDown most recently. So much later in the night, you had Yost and Shay being treated backstage by their doctors, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And, well, at least, yeah, like I said, they weren't on WWE TV after that. At least not to my knowledge, I think. But for Braun Strowman, you know, he did still get to be featured prominently on WWE TV after this. So there's something. There's something at least. So now we get to the actual main card of the show. We've already been through 4 matches. Like, I'm already bored out of my mind watching the show. And can this show finally wake me up? Can this show finally erase my boredom? So let's get into the main card itself. We open the show, which kind of doesn't make any sense. This intro package doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to get that message that they're trying to come across, and I've already forgotten. I've already forgotten what they're trying to. That message was. It had Becky, Ronda, Nia Jax, who wasn't even. No, she was on the show, and then you had Charlotte, and then Seth Rollins, and then they had this piano playing, but it didn't really. I don't know. Something just didn't fit with me. It was just me, but I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So anyway, we get to the main card. The host of WrestleMania, Alexa Bliss, she had her Open of Bliss. It wasn't really called that, but I just thought it was kind of cool to say. She greeted everyone to WrestleMania. She had the show in the palm of her hands, as well as the crowd. She said she can easily create a WrestleMania moment with a snap of the finger. To prove her point, she did just that, and that brought out Hulk Hogan. He did his usual shtick. What you gonna do, brother, when WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan and Alexa Bliss run wild on you? With Alexa. So, yeah. He did a signature flex with Alexa, but then you notice something waltzing out. You notice a certain walrus, a certain advocate, a soon-to-be future Hall of Fame advocate, if not one already, this past weekend. Congratulations, by the way. A certain advocate waddled his way down the ring to spoil the fun as he wanted to get the next match started, the first match started actually, right away. And that was the Universal Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. Before we actually talk about why Paul Heyman even wanted this match to get started right away, we have to talk about why we even got to this point in the first place. So Seth Rollins, he won the 2019 Royal Rumble, and well, that guaranteed him a championship match of his choosing at WrestleMania. So the next night on Raw, after some thinking, after some consultation, he elected to use his title opportunity to challenge the Universal Champion Brock Lesnar, despite some discouragement from from Lesnar's advocate Paul Heyman. So weeks later, after Seth takes care of some business with Roman and John Moxley, or at the time he was known as Dean Ambrose, he would start focusing on Brock Lesnar, get their build going. Lesnar would kind of have the advantage sometimes, but then Seth got the last laugh on the Raw before Mania with a low blow and a curb stomp, served as a little bit of a preview of what was to come at WrestleMania. But for some of you that may also remember, this was kind of a little bit of a sequel, a kind of sequel-ish to what happened 4 years before at WrestleMania 31. Y'all remember the heist of the century. Y'all remember Seth Rollins cashing in his Money in the Bank contract during the main event, stealing the WWE Championship away from Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns to end off the night. So Lesnar was looking for payback for Rollins for doing that and this sanctioned match. So going back to the point of Paul Heyman waddling his way to the ring, interrupting Alexa Bliss and Hulk Hogan, Paul Heyman wanted his client to go first since there were 3 certain competitors that were going to go on last. So he wanted this Universal Championship match to get started. Lesnar came out, Seth came out, but before Seth can enter the ring, Lesnar brutally attacked Rollins before the bell. And that included F5ing him, throwing him over the announce table multiple times, and then he threw him through the announce table cover. So once you have the match get underway, the bell rings, Lesnar takes him to Suplex City. But before he can give him the finishing F5, Seth weasels his way out of it. He pushed Lesnar into the referee. The ref just escapes out of the ring, but the ref was outside. And he doesn't see what's going on because Seth takes advantage of Lesnar's one kryptonite, his dick. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he punches Lesnar in the dick just like he did the Monday prior. He gets a cheating advantage, as a babyface. And 3 curb stomps later, Seth Rollins is your new Universal Champion. I do remember at least how much fans wanted Seth Rollins to win the Royal Rumble and win the WWE Champion, not the WWE Championship, the Universal Championship. Now, I do remember seeing this. I do at least remember seeing this 5 years ago. It certainly was a field goal moment, and don't get me wrong, like it was a little refreshing to see Seth Rollins in this point in time, finally getting like another moment like this. But man, was the aftermath of it so bad? It was so terrible, like what happened after this. But we'll talk more about that when I give my final thoughts of this show. But Rollins once again stole the title away from Lesnar, and honestly, in a little bit of nefarious means, by the way. As a babyface, Seth Rollins was kind of like a squeaky clean babyface by this point of his career, that it kind of made him look a little weak, per se, and Lesnar kind of looked like the babyface, while Rollins looked like the heel. But nonetheless, things were certainly far from over between them, as Rollins was your Universal Champion after WrestleMania 35. Our second matchup of the night involved AJ Styles taking on Randy Orton. These two were beefing with each other since the Royal Rumble. It escalated at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Orton eliminated AJ in the WWE title Elimination Chamber match, and AJ retaliated by attacking Orton at the next pay-per-view, Fastlane. So there was a little bit of reasoning why this feud was happening, because Orton disliked AJ Styles and his catchphrase of SmackDown being the house that AJ Styles built, when in reality Orton considered SmackDown his home, because that's where his career began back in 2002, which it was true. But AJ Styles spent most of his years on the indies. But AJ Styles, he had a rebuttal, claiming Orton had everything handed to him. Honestly, that's not really a good rebuttal. When Orton, that's where it first started, and AJ Styles just came years later in WWE. And then Styles had to work for everything to get to this point. I mean, okay, I'll give it that. So a match was made between these two for WrestleMania, and this was pretty uneventful. This could have happened on a SmackDown per se, and I just didn't really feel it. I just didn't really feel this match up until the end, because Randy Orton would hit an RKO on AJ Styles, despite taking an enziguri seconds earlier, but AJ kicked out of it, and then Orton tried to finish off AJ Styles from the middle rope with a super RKO from the top rope. Middle rope. But AJ Styles escaped out of that with a Pele, slipping out of the middle rope. And then he later hit a Pele kick. And then he set up and hit the phenomenal forearm on Orton. But that was on the outside of the ring. So he brought him back into the ring. And then he hit him again with the phenomenal forearm to win that match. Yeah, for the most part, this dragged. This is a match that dragged. Not a whole lot happened. This is just like one of those plodding matches. And trust me, there's a good amount of them on this show. So then we have the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. It was a fatal 4-way encounter, and your participants included the defending champion, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, Aleister Black, and Ricochet, Rusev, now known as Miro, taking on Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro, now known as Claudio Castagnoli, and Sheamus. A couple of guys here now in AEW. We're here on WrestleMania trying to vie for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. So, how did this match come into play? Well, the Usos were dealt punishment. They were dealt repercussions for what they did in a certain match that would be mentioned later. So Alexa Bliss, they commended the Usos for those actions for that certain for setting up that certain match, but those actions would have repercussions, as she said, which led to this fatal 4-way match. So this match, it had some stuff. It had everyone trying to get their stuff in. But actually, yeah, there wasn't too much that took place. But it had a couple cool moments, like Cesaro giving the Cesaro swing on Ricochet, constantly, like he wouldn't let go of that shit. And then at the same time, you had Sheamus giving the 10 beats of the Baldwin to many of the participants that got in his way, that tried to stop the Cesaro swing. And then later on, you had all 4 teams participating in the Circle Jerk Tower of Doom spot. But somehow, Ricochet managed to get out, escape it, by flipping out of it, as everyone was crashing down. I was just like, wow. All right. And I'm not a big Ricochet fan, but it's like, okay, he impressed me there. But then each team went on a finisher spam towards the end of the match. Sheamus gave the last one being giving a broad kick to Ricochet before he fell victim to a double Uso splash from the Usos to retain their tag team titles. So again, an tag team title match, but you had few cool moments. And when you think about it, it's crazy how the Usos were from 2019, and then they've gone nowhere but up since then. And look at them now in 2024, having a match against each other at WrestleMania. Kind of crazy. And fortunately, though, for Rusev and Cesaro and others in this match, yeah, not so much. Not so much. There's another interesting thing that happened before this match, though. Lacey Evans, the sassy Southern Belle, gave the last of her final teases in something that was surely to come from Miss Southern Belle. Before the next match, we had a Hall of Fame 2019 video package. And why do I point this out? Well, there was something that I do remember from this Hall of Fame ceremony, and that was from D-Generation X's induction. Yes, they got inducted as a group. That included China. But before they talked about China, oh man, I totally remember it brought up to my memory of how much Triple H roasted Billy Gunn for signing with AEW. AEW was new at that time period, and Triple H called it a pissant company. I totally remember that, and he just brought it up. Well, he didn't name AEW specifically, but he called AEW a pissant company. And well, yeah, here we are now, 5 years later. It certainly feels like it. It certainly feels like Triple H. Well, I guess for now, it certainly feels that way. But I just thought it would be kind of funny to bring that back up. So our next match had The Miz and Shane McMahon duking it out in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Back in 2018 at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, as the year was going to end, The Miz was set to compete in the finals of the Best in the World Cup tournament against Dolph Ziggler. However, he injured his knee in a pre-match brawl with Dolph Ziggler, and that led to SmackDown general manager Shane McMahon to take his place and win the cup. Weeks later, Miz decided, you know what? I want to do this tag team thing with you. So he offered Shane McMahon a chance at being the best tag team in the world. Shane was kind of like a little iffy on it, but then eventually he would accept it. And they would go on to win the SmackDown tag team titles from Cesaro and Sheamus at the 2019 Royal Rumble. But then a month later, they would drop it to the Usos at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. They would go on to lose a rematch in Miz's hometown of Cleveland, Ohio at the Fastlane pay-per-view. And they got a standing ovation from the crowd. Miz's dad was there. But unfortunately for the Miz, Shane decided to jump him. Initially for no reason, but he decided, you know what, I'm going to fuck up the Miz in front of his dad, who was singing at ringside, make his hurt his feelings and whatnot. And then he explained on the next episode of SmackDown, he accused the Miz of using him. And he claimed he's going to start doing things as the best in the world, just like how he grew up, like a McMahon. So he challenged Miz for WrestleMania because he wanted to beat him up again in front of his daddy. However, the Miz counteroffered it with a false count anywhere stipulation because the Miz thought Shane made it personal, and Shane agreed to that stipulation, and here we are. So obviously, before the match started, you had Greg Hamilton being forced to announce Shane the right way, and introducing the best in the world, Shane McMahon. Y'all remember that intro? Y'all remember that intro? Now that was the real best in the world. Not forget CM Punk. Shane McMahon was the real best in the world. I kid. But did you like my impersonation? No, you don't have to. But anyway, this match was kind of fun. Shane McMahon, he dominated this early portion of the match. He was gonna drop the Miz through the announce table early on, but then you have Miz's dad step in to stop it, and we all thought Miz's dad was gonna get physical. You all remember that meme of Miz's dad ready to put his hands up with a fighting chance? That classic meme, even though it's only 5 years old. But no, Shane whooped his ass. Shane whooped a 60-year-old man, and that woke up the Miz, and he was on the assault for most of the rest of the match. And yeah, a fight broke into the crowd, and part of the assault saw Miz hit Shane with a small monitor, and Shane, he sold it like a cannon. He fell 8 feet off of the I think it was the risers in the crowd. He fell it was a production table. He fell 8 feet off of that production booth on the roof of a golf cart to the floor for a near fall. And I was like, damn, I guess he got shot. So then the fight goes to a scaffolding. Miz hits the skull-crushing finale on hardwood. But Shane somehow manages to kick out like a real super soldier. So Shane escapes to the top of the scaffolding. Miz follows him there. And then Shane knows he's about to die. So he gets on his hands and knees like he's about to suck that, But Miz didn't care. Miz was going to attempt murder with a 15-foot superplex off the camera scaffolding. He does the 15-foot superplex. And, well, we thought the Miz was going to win this match. But nope. The commentators pointed out Miz's emotions got the best of him in that wreck because Shane's shoulder ended up on top of the Miz in the mess. 1, 2, 3, and by a WrestleMania miracle, the best in the world, Shane McMahon, won the match. So I'll admit, that back half portion where the Miz was beating his ass up, it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to watch. It made for a solid Falls Count Anywhere match. Some decent storytelling by the Miz. Some of his best work in his career. And no, I'm not the biggest Miz fan, But this was one of those Miz matches that I kind of liked. Unfortunately, it had the wrong winner. It was just like, why did Shane McMahon need to be booked to win this match? Especially when he needs, like, the Miz needed to get his due justice. He needed to get that win over Shane for what he did to him and his dad. The personal story. It just felt like it made the Miz look stupid, and it makes the Miz look even more stupid when he barely lost to Shane again at the next Money in the Bank pay-per-view inside of a steel cage, and because he got drafted to Raw in the Superstar Shakeup like weeks prior, he didn't get a chance to get a win over Shane. Like, he got swept in a 2-match series. That really hurt the Miz in 2019. So again, solid storytelling, but for as much as I like Shane, like, he did not need this win. Like he did not. Like, maybe he could have gotten it, like they could split the series, but he did not need this win here. Then we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match in a fatal 4-way match. Your participants include the inaugural Tag Team Champions, the Boston Hug Connection of Bayley and Sasha Banks, of course now known as Mercedes Moné, taking on the teams of Nia Jax and Tamina, the Divas of Doom, Beth Phoenix and Natalya, and I'm ready to say this, 5 years later, the Moronics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. There's Women's Tag Team Championships. The cursed titles as we know them now. They were introduced at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view the month prior, and Bayley and Sasha Banks went on to become those champions after winning the Elimination Chamber match. And they wanted to successfully defend those titles against Nia Jax and Tamina at the next pay-per-view, Fastlane. But they were soon called out by their opponents, the Moronics, and the reformed team of Natalya and Beth Phoenix, aka the Divas of Doom. Beth Phoenix came out of retirement for this match, and then soon a 4-way tag team match was announced. So this from this point onward, for some of these matches, you had special guest commentators for, again, select matches. One of those select commentators was Saraya, who during this time was Paige and was retired from a neck injury, if I remember correctly. So she was on commentary during this match. And again, like with the SmackDown Tag Team title match from earlier, this is another one of those matches where everyone was getting their shit in, but the crowd really couldn't get into it at all because of, well, the lack of interest and, from the match earlier with The Miz and Shane McMahon. So towards the end of this match, Sasha and Bayley nearly won this match with their Macho Man elbow and frog splash combination on Beth Phoenix for a near fall. And then before Beth Phoenix could hit Bayley with the super glam slam from the top rope, which she did, by the way. But before that, Billie Kay of the Moronics blind tagged herself in as Beth Phoenix seemed to have the match won. She was going to pin Bayley, but the Moronics came in like vultures to take her out and pin Bayley to win the women's tag team titles. So, not a very interesting match. And it crowned one of the worst women's tag team champions in its cursed history. I mean, some of you are fans of the Iconics. I'll give you that, but I was just personally annoyed by them. I was just not a fan of them. I was like, they were annoying on the mic. And some of you may say, oh, that's just like, they're heels. That's their job. They're supposed to be annoying. But no, it's not a good annoying. It was like, go away, heat annoying. Like, okay? The Peyton Royce and Billie Kay were annoying. They wanted me, they were screaming, get off my TV screen. Annoying. But again, that's just my opinion. But if you like them, that's cool. But the Moronics were one of the worst women's tag team champions because, well, other than the other teams that barely held it for 30 days, less than 30 days. Well, because they barely defended the thing. And how long they have the titles for? Like nearly 4 months. And how many times did they defend that title? Like once or twice? It was like a Rhea Ripley title reign. Like really? And with their gimmick, it's like these were your champions. Like God. So that wasn't even the bigger story of this women's tag team title match. It was what happened backstage, or at least what was initially at the time, but then it got later debunked. So as some of you may know, there was this huge blow up. At least at that time, like right after WrestleMania happened, by dirt sheets, which again later got debunked completely, over Sasha Banks and Bayley. They threw an apparent fit backstage over being booked to lose the tag team titles at the very last minute. So, yeah, there were a lot of reports about this going on by various dirt sheets, but then those turned out to be false. Bayley appeared the next night on Raw. She eventually got a major singles push upon being moved to SmackDown in the Superstar Shakeup. I mean, she won Money in the Bank. She won the SmackDown Women's title. So, yeah, consider that false, even 5 years later. But as for Sasha Banks, well, we don't know about what happened with her, like, during this part. She was, though, well absent after WrestleMania, with speculation of, her looking to leave WWE, because she was well frustrated with their creative direction. Well, are you surprised? Are you surprised with this at all, even 5 years later? Just look at what happened the year prior before she joined AEW. So, 2 years later, after this, in an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, the reason why she was gone during this period, that she asked for her release at first, but Vince McMahon denied it. However, he offered her time off to reconsider like where she was in her life, with her career. She noted that she was battling depression, which is always a tough battle. I'll give her that. But it was an interesting point with Sasha Banks during this time, in terms of what was going on with her, and her fans, because it can be rowdy, but from a person's standpoint, kind of interesting. So Banks wouldn't return until the night after SummerSlam. 4 months later, she came back as a heel. She eventually convinced Bayley to join the dark side as well, and then go on this run throughout the pandemic, like several months later. So, as for this match, yeah, not all that interesting. But this next match certainly was, and that was involving the WWE Champion, the new Daniel Bryan, taking on Kofi Kingston. And why do I say the new Daniel Bryan? Well, months prior, he ditched the whole yes movement in favor of becoming the planet's champion, the one that hated the people that messed with the environment. He was basically an eco-friendly kind of wrestler, and one that really cared for the environment and made the WWE Championship out of like all this herb, or I forgot what kind of material it was, but it was basically an all herb or like kind of like recycled WWE Championship. It was like kind of like one of those very unique title designs. Meanwhile, as for Kofi Kingston and why this match came into play, this match actually was not supposed to happen, because I think it's Mustafa Ali that was supposed to get this kind of match. So Kofi Kingston, by chance, he got this big push starting at Elimination Chamber, replacing an injured Mustafa Ali inside the Elimination Chamber at that pay-per-view, during which Daniel Bryan would eliminate Kofi to retain the title, while also getting payback on him for eliminating him during that gauntlet match on the SmackDown prior. So, throughout the next month, Kofi sought another WWE title match, but then he would be given obstacle after obstacle, and even after overcoming those obstacles, Mr. McMahon would put in more obstacles and so many false promises that he didn't want Kofi to be in a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. He just simply didn't believe in him, just like he didn't believe in a certain guy 5 years prior at WrestleMania 30 in Daniel Bryan. And ironically, with Daniel Bryan, he was calling Kofi Kingston a B-plus player. Kind of hypocritical of him, considering this was a reverse role of where he was 5 years prior with WrestleMania 30. So, Kofi lost another gauntlet match due to being given another unfair advantage from Vince. So, Kofi and the rest of this group, the New Day, threatened to leave the WWE. But McMahon gave Kofi one last chance at his main title match versus Daniel Bryan. But that last chance would have to be earned by his teammates, Big E and Xavier Woods, in a similar gauntlet match Kofi endured. So they had to fight various different teams, pretty much the entire tag team division on SmackDown. So Big E and Xavier Woods, for as exhausted as they were, they fought them all, except for the Usos, because going back to what I said earlier with that tag team title match, the reason why Alexa Bliss put them in that fatal four-way match was because the Usos forfeited their portion of this gauntlet match out of respect to their rivals. So Big E and Xavier got a little bit of a bye for their final opponents, Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan. And they managed to beat those two to get Kofi his WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. And that sets up probably the match of the night. In so far, a really packed WrestleMania. And I don't mean packed in a good way. So you had a red hot crowd, about at the 4 hour mark, if you include the pre-show. But this was a red hot crowd from the start for this match. And the wrestlers backstage were firmly supporting Kofi. And he was in control early on. But then you have Daniel Bryan sidestepping a springboard splash from Kofi, trying to get Bryan on the through the announce table. And then Bryan took him back into the ring, slowed the pace down with a lot of submission holds and kicks. But then Kofi got back in the match with a counter for counter battle with Daniel. Kofi reversed Bryan's running knee into the SOS. But then you have Bryan turn it into a pinfall, the pinfall attempt from the SOS into the label lock. And Kofi managed to escape out of that. So then you get a little bit of shenanigans between the New Day and Eric Rowan later on in the match. The New Day eventually outnumber Eric Rowan, obviously, even though he's a big man. But once you get Kofi back into the ring, Bryan hits the running knee. And to his surprise, and the loud cheers of the crowd, Kofi kicks out. Bryan's like, what do I have to do, man? What do I have to do to crush this guy's hopes and dreams? So Bryan, once again, slowly and over arrogantly locks in the label lock on a fading Kofi. But Kofi is not going to give up. Behind the crowd, behind the New Day, Kofi fights out of it and stomps out the Planet Champion's lights out. So it was Kofi's turn to prey on Daniel Bryan. And with the roar of the crowd, with the roar of the New Day chanting, "New Day rocks! New Day rocks!" It was trouble in paradise for Daniel Bryan, as 3 counts later, 1, 2, 3, we had a new WWE champion in Kofi Kingston. So, oh man. But first of all, actually, let me get this out of the way first. Just like with Seth Rollins, the aftermath of this WWE title match was very bad. I'll just admit it now. Kofi Kingston was not a good defending world champion. It is mainly in part due to lack of opponents and very bad booking. But with that being said, the story leading up to this and the match itself, it was done very well. What started out as a replacement spot for Kofi at the Chamber, like a fill-in spot, it turned into one of the craziest twists of fates stories in WrestleMania history, like recent WrestleMania history. And as some will say, oh, Kofi shouldn't have even been this spot, or yeah, he didn't deserve a WWE title match with Daniel Bryan, let alone have, like, neither of these two should have been in the WWE title match 5 years ago. But with the story being told, and the commentary selling it very well, I think it earned it. It really earned it, even just short years later. Because never before in his 11-year career at the time which is now what, like 15, he has never held the WWE Championship. In the crowds, whether it's casual or hardcore, neutral, they were fans of Kofi and the rest of the New Day and the rest of the locker room. They were fully behind him. And throughout the weeks and in this match, the commentary team of Tom Phillips, Corey Graves, and especially Byron Saxton, they did a really great job telling this story of Kofi Kingston rising in the ranks in WWE, climbing up to the mountaintop, not just with the New Day, but himself. And in that match, they're trying to encourage Kofi on, and they're like basically playing cheerleader for Kofi. And yeah, once that final 3 count came, it was just like a climax to that story. And pretty much Byron's summarized it. You can achieve your dreams no matter who you are or what you look like, as long as you believe in yourself. Like, those are pretty powerful words. And it paid off. This storyline paid off immensely with the roar of the crowd, the emotions on commentary, the emotions from Kofi, Xavier, Big E, and I'm not sure if that, I think that was his kids in the ring. But regardless, like I said, even though the aftermath was pretty bad from both sides of the coin, the sudden story that fell on the laps of WWE with Kofi Mania is something that's going to be remembered for quite some time. I know there will be some detractors that say, "Oh, that's not true." Just look at the buildup for this match and look at how the story played out in the ring. I know it's kind of hypocritical for me to say that. The story should be told before the match. Yeah, which is true, but they actually had the story going in. You know, Kofi fighting his way to get this title match, and then you tell the story in the ring. This is actually done pretty well. So, for two mid-carder, two upper to middle tier mid-carders that were kind of in a big spot at WrestleMania, they kind of proved me wrong. Even 5 years later, back in 2019, they sold me. They sold me pretty well on Kofi Mania, and something I'll actually remember as I won the better, if not great, WrestleMania moments. So anyway, we have our next matchup, which was the United States champion Samoa Joe taking on Rey Mysterio. It was another one of those matches that was just set up out of the blue, actually weeks prior, but not really too much backstory behind it, because Rey Mysterio would get a U.S. Championship match against Samoa Joe after pitting him in tag team action. So yeah, not really too much substance with this feud. So the next special guest commentary for a WrestleMania match was Booker T. But even with Booker T on commentary, well, let's say you took a piss, you went to go get a snack after the WWE title match that we just saw. Well, you do that and you miss this match, because Samoa Joe made quick work of Rey Mysterio to retain his U.S. title. He passed him out with the Coquina Clutch, survived the 619, and yeah, he passed out Rey Mysterio. A little ironic that we talk about Rey Mysterio beating JBL in 21 seconds 10 years prior to this. Well, at least, 10 years, like 10 WrestleMania retro reviews earlier. And then here we are 10 years later, from WrestleMania to WrestleMania, he loses to Samoa Joe in under a minute. Like, ouch. That's ouch. The next matchup involved Roman Reigns taking on Drew McIntyre. Roman Reigns, he returned from a 5-month hiatus at the end of February. The reason why he was gone, well, he was forced to leave the WWE because he had to go care for his leukemia. He was diagnosed with leukemia before he came to the WWE, and it was back in the midst of his Universal Championship run, and he was forced to vacate that title. But he came back in February of 2019, and he announced that it was in remission, which was very good news at the time for both him, the WWE, and the fans. So, very good news for Roman Reigns. But a week later, in his first match back since he had to leave, he was attacked by Drew McIntyre, the Scott Psychopath. That was his nickname at the time. So he was attacked by Drew McIntyre, and after dealing with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, his Shield teammates. He went on to challenge Roman at WrestleMania. He insulted his family. He insulted the Shield. Roman tried to attack him, but failed. So Reigns accepted his challenge. So that's what this match was. So the big dog. I do not miss Michael Cole calling him the big dog. Here comes the big dog. The big dog. So, yeah, even after the remission of his leukemia, after he announced that, people went right back to booing Roman Reigns during this time period. And, well, as Roman said in his A&E documentary, this was the point in time of his career where it was a low point. Like, there really wasn't a whole lot of direction with him. He pretty much already had enough of the big dog. Especially but he probably had enough of Michael Cole calling him the big dog in a very happy fashion. So this was a very anticlimactic match that felt like a TV match because Drew was dominating most of this match, and then obviously you had the big babyface come back from Roman after he got slapped in the face. He spears Drew McIntyre to win the match. So you could tell throughout this whole match that either people were booing Roman or they just not care for him at this point especially in terms of his character. Like the big dog trying to push Roman Reigns as this big baby face. Clearly people were not having it, and either that or just not really care. And yeah, you could obviously tell that when Roman was trying to wake up the crowd to set up the spear, it just really didn't have an effect. Well, it's just how it was in 2019, even when Roman came back. Vince just kept trying to do the same stuff over and over again, but it just failed even harder. And it also hurt Drew McIntyre too. He had to play sidekick to whoever was the big bad heel, the big bad authority figure. But fortunately for them both, they would wind up much better the next year. And well, they're winding up better right now. So, hey, turned out good for them in the end, right? Next up, we had a WrestleMania musical performance by none other than Elias. So Elias had his musical performance. Started out with him on a drum set, followed by him on a piano. And then, obviously, you had Elias in the ring as you had the three Eliases do a warm-up song for the crowd, while Elias in the ring took over for himself, playing to the tune of Seven Nation Army, whoa, oh. Except it's to the tune of Walk with Elias. So Elias performed, he promised a performance that was going to be the best in WrestleMania history. I'm not sure if we really had that many concert performances, other than, I guess, Kid Rock from the last episode. So he was going to begin his first actual song. But then you start seeing this video of the 1932 World Series. You saw Babe Ruth calling his shot, as they noted, and there's going to be another slugger. There's going to be another slugger calling his shot, and that was the doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena. John Cena came out in his old Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick that made him popular, and then he did a rap on Elias. Not as strong as, obviously, it was back in his glory days of the Thugonomics, but, still all right nonetheless. And he was ready to evoke the golden shovel with an FU written all over it. And that's exactly what he did to Elias. So it was just pretty much a segment to have John Cena on the show, because if I remember correctly, Cena's acting career was pretty much in full swing. He didn't really do all that much in, I think it was like late 2018 and then most of 2019. So he was pretty much nearly full into Hollywood by that point in time. And well, this was only what he could do. Like, he really couldn't get all that physical. But hey, returning to the gimmick that made him popular, that began his rise to the top, it was worth the cameo here. Next up, we had Triple H take on Batista in a no-holds-barred match. A rematch from WrestleMania 21. Their feud from 2005 would be revisited back at the 1000th episode of SmackDown in October of 2018, even though Evolution wasn't really part of SmackDown, but they had a reunion on that 1000th episode. Batista, at the end of the reunion, was praising Triple H, telling him all of his accolades, how but Triple H was a great man, and he's done it all except beat him. It was a tense moment, and I remember that. It made me jump out of my. It made me jump, stand up, and I was like, "Oh shit, is this a WrestleMania match incoming?" Yeah, that was my thought process. Is this a WrestleMania match incoming? Because yeah, when he said this man has done everything except beat me, I remember that vividly. So you get to a couple months later, after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, the roster was set to celebrate Ric Flair's 70th birthday, but Batista attacked him backstage to get Triple H's attention. So, of course, it wouldn't be a celebration. It wouldn't be a backstage attack without, the memes. You all remember that meme of Batista saying, "You have your attention now, Hunter?" So, initially declining at first, Triple H accepted to face Batista at WrestleMania in a no-holds-barred match. And then Batista went on to accuse Triple H of holding him down in his career, even though Batista went on to go have like many accolades, like the World Heavyweight and WWE Championship and other titles. But that's besides the point. He demanded that Triple H put his career on the line. Triple H agreed. After more memes from Batista, I feel like this feud gave us like two very notable memes from Batista, and it was great. It like this feud alone, it was just meme worthy.
Give me what I want.
So we get to the actual match itself. Shawn Michaels was on commentary for this match, and Batista had his Hollywood entourage escort him to the stage. However, unfortunately, he tripped going into the ring, which I probably imagine ended up on Botchamania. So for Triple H, he entered Mad Max style, and he was a mad fuck to start this match, whipping and choking Batista with a metal chain, using big pliers to smash his fingers on the steel steps, with the pliers trapped on his fingers. And then the brutal spot of the match, using small like clippers or smaller pliers to rip out his nose ring on live pay-per-view. Like, was it like brutal to watch the first time? If it wasn't like nasty to watch the first time, it's like certainly cringe-inducing to watch that a second time. Like, dude, like, there's like more nasty spots in wrestling, but it's like this is one of them. This was one of them. I don't know, Batista got another nose ring, but it's like, oh man, that must have hurt. But anyway, after a long while of Batista beating down Triple H, the game speared Batista from the Spanish announce table into the German announce table, so that breaks. Batista later on hit his signature offense with the spear, the spine buster, Batista bomb, but he couldn't get that elusive 3 count. So Batista, he had his own finisher used against him by Triple H onto the steel steps, who followed it up with a pedigree. Triple H couldn't get the elusive 3 count as well, and then Triple H tried to hit Batista with a sledgehammer, but Batista countered it with a big DDT onto the steel steps, and he grabbed the hammer for himself. But then you have Ric Flair coming from the crowd to give Triple H another sledgehammer behind Batista's back, and that distracted Batista. Batista would get some encouragement, and I use that in air quotes, from his mentor, Ric Flair. He was cheering him on, but Triple H used that distraction to hit Batista with a sledgehammer in to him, an epic fashion. And he hit the sledgehammer with him and win the match with one last pedigree to keep his career alive. And I gotta say, with this match, it really slowed down. It really slowed down after a interesting start, and it made it. And man, this was I don't remember this match being that dull. Like, I thought this was a solid match when I first watched it, but then, man, this is not good. This is kind of like, I wouldn't say not good, but it's just like very, very below average. Because there wasn't really a lot that happened during during the first actually the second half. Like I can't even remember half of it. It's like how uninteresting it was. So like after the first couple minutes, yeah, nothing too much happened. And you could really tell how the crowd was starting to fade from this long ass show with so many matches. But man, these dudes took some nasty ass bumps and did some crazy ass spots in here. Like at their age, like not gonna lie, they took some nasty bumps and used like some crazy ass weapons. So even though Triple H did keep his career alive, this was one of his last wrestling matches because of the heart attack that he suffered 3 years later, and that forced him to retire. And for Batista, this was indeed his last wrestling match. He decided to retire after this, so I will cut it some slack with this match because this ended up being both of their last wrestling matches. So, hey, if you're gonna retire, at least do it with the bang, in their eyes. So speaking of bang, and this match certainly wasn't. Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle in Angle's last match. Kurt Angle, he was gonna go on a retirement tour a few weeks prior, so he faced several opponents along the way before facing his chosen opponent, Baron Corbin. Yeah, of all people, Baron Corbin was going to face him at WrestleMania. Now, even though Kurt Angle had many problems with Baron Corbin during his tenure of Raw prior to this in 2018, like, of all people, like, I remember people being so mad at WWE for having Baron Corbin be Angle's final opponent. The disrespect to this man for what was it? A legendary, one of the best wrestlers in pro wrestling, and yet his final opponent is Baron Corbin. Like Baron Corbin's not bad, but it's just like he's like really. Like you didn't have like John Cena. But anyway, speaking of John Cena, Baron Corbin mocked the mad people, like giving Angle the "you can't see me," and then Corbin would be hit with the German suplex, the trifecta, and then Angle tried to hit a moonsault, but Baron Corbin rolled out of it. And then he hit the end of days. He hit the end of days after a kind of lengthy match, and he beat Kurt Angle in his last match. Like, who would have thunk that Kurt Angle in his last match would be beat by Baron Corbin? Like, I don't know the decision behind this. And I don't know if Angle was okay with all this, but in my opinion, this is stupid as all hell. Like, this is really dumb. Like, a wrestling legend like Kurt Angle, like, I know it's like 5 years later talking about this. Like, and if this indeed was Kurt Angle's decision, then I'll respect it. But it's just like, he deserves so much better. A much better ending to his wrestling career. Like, again, he should have faced someone that can either be pushed positively, like a young star that can be pushed to the moon with all that momentum, or face someone in an exhibition that, in a showcase, like with John Cena. Cena's very first opponent in WWE in his debut. Have one last showcase. And, I don't know who would win, but it would at least be a more interesting option than this one. Baron Corbin. But because Baron Corbin went on to do nothing. He went on to do nothing and no, unless you want to count winning King of the Ring, which he also went to do nothing with. And then, you want to count playing with dog food with Roman Reigns at the end of 2019. Like, really? Baron Corbin. Which makes this makes Angle's last match an even bigger shame because of what Baron Corbin went on to later do. And that was barely anything to note. Again, unless you want to count playing with dog food with Roman Reigns at the end of 2019. But I mean, at least you get one last standing ovation, one last "you suck," in a good way, because that was Angle's signature chant from a very tired MetLife crowd. So, by this point in the show, we still have two more matches. The crowd was very tired as hell, very drained, but we still have one more match before the main event. That was the Intercontinental Champion Bobby Lashley taking on Finn Balor. This match didn't really have a lot of backstory going into it, but all I know is that these two traded victories over the Intercontinental Championship in the last month and a half leading up to WrestleMania. And after Lashley most recently won the title off of Balor, Balor beat Lashley and Jinder Mahal in a handicap match to get another match against Lashley at WrestleMania. But in this match, he warned the Almighty of his alter ego, the Demon, that may show up to face him. And that's exactly what Bobby Lashley got. Instead of regular Finn Balor, he got the Demon, Finn Balor, in this WrestleMania match. So this is a fairly short match. And halfway into it, Bobby Lashley used a distraction by his hype man, Lio Rush, to spear Balor from the ring to the floor. And it was a nasty spear. And then he brought him back into the ring for another spear. But to his surprise, Balor kicked out. And then Lashley tried to powerbomb Balor. But Balor powerbombed him after he tried to lift him up a few tries. And then Balor went on to hit the coup de grace, the kitty foot stomp, to win back his Intercontinental Championship. So, fairly short match. And this did not need to be on the card at all. And I feel like that's, the case with a lot of these matches on this show. Like, put this on a Raw or SmackDown or something. Simple as that. Especially considering, how tired everyone was. How uninteresting at this point of time in 2019, how uninteresting both Bobby Lashley and Balor were, in 2019. Especially Bobby Lashley, pointing his ass in front of everybody. And Lio Rush was like, oh yeah, look at that ass. Oh man, those dimes were so bad. So anyway, before the main event, Alexa Bliss came back out to announce the attendance of WrestleMania 35, which was around 82,000, which clearly was not the case. That was apparently only 70,000 because I don't know how MetLife Stadium could fit all that, but for them, I guess it's cool. And then Alexa Bliss brought out R-Truth and Carmella for a dance break, or as I like to call it, cringe break. I don't know what I said back at I said something to make fun of it at TLC 2018. I think it was cringe break, or I don't know. But anyway, a teaser trailer was shown for the location announcement for the next year's WrestleMania 36, which was slated to be held in Tampa, Florida at Raymond James Stadium, home of the Tampa Bay Bucks. But obviously, as we know what happened in 2020 with WrestleMania 36, yeah, the less said about it, the better. What happened with WrestleMania 36, why it didn't happen at Raymond James Stadium, and yeah, let's not talk about that. So now, after 15 matches we talked about in this retro review, we're finally at the main event. We're finally at this main event of this long-ass show. The Raw Women's Champion, Ronda Rousey, taking on the SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair, taking on the 2019 Royal Rumble winner, Becky Lynch, in a winner-take-all triple threat main event. How this all came together? Well, there's a lot of backstory behind this. So Ronda Rousey, the Raw Women's Champion going into this, she made a WrestleMania debut a year prior to this, and well, in that mixed tag team match with Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon, she was praised for how well she did in the ring. I know some people countered that like 6 years later, especially with the autobiography with Ronda and Becky out now. But during that point in time in 2018, she was getting a lot of praise in the ring. But obviously, she had the rocket strapped to her. Then 4 months later at SummerSlam, she won the Raw Women's Championship, now known as the WWE Women's Championship, from Alexa Bliss at that event. And then around that same time period, at that same event, Charlotte Flair won the SmackDown Women's Championship in a triple threat match that involved the defending champion at that event, Carmella, and Becky Lynch. So Lynch was the one that took the pinfall from Flair, who were best friends at the time. But unfortunately for Lynch, she thought it was enough. Enough was enough. She attacked Charlotte after the match, ended their friendship, and that began Becky's ascent to the top of the women's division. So Becky would beat Charlotte at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. She won the title, and then she went on to successfully defend it at Evolution, the all-women's pay-per-view the next month, in a last women's standing match. So Becky, by that point, her popularity was skyrocketing, and went on to go by the moniker, the nickname, The Man. You know, a nickname that I pretty much despise. Like, again, I don't despise the person, but I despise the character, Becky Lynch. But nonetheless, by that point, I'll admit, I'm not afraid to admit it, you know, in 2018, with this whole The Man stick, you know, okay, I'll admit, I was kind of into it. I was kind of like, okay, let's see where this goes. It had me a little intrigued. So Becky Lynch, she crossed paths with Ronda Rousey as they were set to face each other at the Brand Warfare themed Survivor Series. But in the go home show for that event, Nia Jax broke Becky's nose, and then you got this, you know, famous picture of Becky, you know, standing in the crowd with blood all over her. But unfortunately, she was replaced by Charlotte Flair for the match against Ronda. Ronda wins that match by DQ because she gets attacked by Charlotte. So I guess in a way that protects them both. I don't know. I don't really recall too much about that event. So the next month, Ronda exacts some payback at the TLC pay-per-view, cost both Charlotte and Lynch in the main event of that match, which was a TLC match, which I got to see in person. So she effectively helps Asuka win the SmackDown Women's Championship. So at the Royal Rumble event in 2019, the next month, as the new year dawns, Becky loses a rematch, but she would take the opportunity to take Lana's spot in the Royal Rumble match. She goes on to win it, eliminates Charlotte last, and she gets a title match at WrestleMania. So the next night on Raw, she elects to face Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. But there's a caveat to that. During that Royal Rumble match, she had her knee injured during that match. So she initially was advised by Stephanie McMahon to get her knee examined. But, you know, Becky was the man. She was she was trying to be the female Stone Cold Steve Austin. Or at least that's how they were trying to book her, or maybe that's how she wanted to be booked. But nonetheless, she was rebelling against that. So she got suspended on medical grounds on 2 separate occasions by the McMahons. So Vince would initially rule Charlotte as Becky's replacement, but for over the next couple of weeks leading up to Fastlane, Becky violated her suspension by attacking both Ronda and Charlotte with her crutches until she got reinstated. So by demand of Ronda, she did get reinstated by Stephanie McMahon, and she was given a chance at Fastlane to be added into the Raw Women's title match if she could beat Charlotte Flair, which she did thanks to Ronda intentionally helping Becky by attacking her. So this match became, for the Raw Women's title, a triple threat, but then it later became winner take all for both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships. Well, because, as I mentioned before, with the women's WrestleMania Battle Royale with Asuka, she was the SmackDown Women's Champion like 2 weeks before WrestleMania, and they took the title off of her. They had Charlotte take the title off of Asuka, and I don't know what the story was. And as I said, Asuka, Sonya Deville, and Mandy Rose were supposed to face each other in a triple threat. I think it was Mandy Rose that talked about it in an interview or a podcast. But yeah, they took the title off of Asuka, and Asuka was relegated to the pre-show Battle Royale. Charlotte got the SmackDown Women's title, and this became winner take all. This was kind of unnecessary. But nonetheless, this became the first ever all-women main event. The first ever time at WrestleMania history that this show was headlined, main evented by women. So to further intensify this main event, all 3 of them fought each other after the 3 beat the Riot Squad in tag team action. So they fought each other, they brawled with each other, and they were arrested in the closing moments of the build-up. And the closing shot, they were still fighting each other, even in the police car. So that was pretty much your build-up for this kind of convoluted, in what initially started as a simple build-up to WrestleMania for these three women. So while you had Charlotte, for this match itself, while you had Charlotte come out in a helicopter, Ronda had her theme song performed live by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, playing "I'm gonna get on a bad reputation," and you had all that happen, and then you had Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch coming out and just the same entrance that she had 5 years later, except now obviously we're here in 2019. Becky Lynch just had her plain ass entrance, whoa, and then she does the arm raise, the smoke comes out, all that. Simple ass Becky Lynch. So this match, it wasn't anything bad, but I can barely remember anything that happened in this. It's like people that were calling it great or like, oh, one of the best matches in WrestleMania history, they're really pushing it, because this was okay, in my opinion. This is just decent. If you're calling it great, I mean that you're entitled to that opinion, but just for me, calling it great, calling it one of the best Mania matches of all time, that's pushing it. That is really pushing it, because I cannot recall a single moment in this match that says, "Oh wow, this was a really cool moment," or like this particular thing. This was really cool. Like I didn't get any of that in this match, and this was like a 20 match show, like 16 match show, and and this is what we led up to the main event. Like, I'm not being but I just didn't see it. I just didn't see it in this main event. So I don't know. I'm just lost for words, and like I only saw like the highlights of this, because the full match was just like, because when you look at this full match, Charlotte was botching a couple moves, including a double natural selection that she didn't hit cleanly on both Ronda and Becky. And then Becky and Ronda couldn't put Charlotte through a table that was set up in the corner, like fully. Like they didn't break the table, just like Charlotte didn't go fully through the table back at TLC 2018. And then when you get to the end of the match, the women were barely selling each other's moves. Like they didn't like sell each other's best shots. I think Ronda was like really like barely selling like Becky's moves, Charlotte's moves, and the effects of their submission finishers. Like, can you guys sell? Can you like sell like how hurt you are in this match? And then of course you had the botch finish. The botch finish of Ronda hitting Piper's hit on Becky, only for Becky to reverse it into a sliding pin, even when Ronda's shoulders were very much up, to win both titles. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what the original ending was supposed to be for this match, but I do know that this match was kind of messy in general. There were botches. I mean, it's not as bad as like, some of the matches like 5 years later, but I do know it's just like there were a couple botches. There's some miscommunication, and the lack of selling towards the end of it. It's just like it kind of ruined this match. It really kind of ruined this match for me. But on a brighter note, this was Becky Lynch's one of her better performances, at least when I saw it. So she at least brought her A game in the closing match of the night. Again, just my opinion, just from what I observed. So she definitely brought her A game. So Becky's rise to the top, it was climaxed with fireworks, a tired crowd waking up. There was a little cheering for her as this long-ass WrestleMania came to a close. Again, a decent match, but again, this just may be me. I didn't see a whole lot. Between the beginning and the end. Like, that middle portion. For most of this match, like, there wasn't really a whole lot here. That felt like, oh, this feels like a WrestleMania main event. But it did feel like a WrestleMania main event was Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan. But unfortunately, that happened at the 2.5 hour mark of that show. I guess it had to do, with the fact that, this is a triple threat. I don't know. Maybe the chemistry was off with either one of these competitors with Charlotte and Ronda, or Becky and Ronda, or I don't know. Either way, this triplet felt kind of off. But anyway, on that night, fans got what they wanted in the form of happy endings to their stories. Whether it was Seth Rollins' story, Becky Lynch's story, Kofi Kingston's story, either way, they got happy endings to their championship stories. So WrestleMania 35, a very long show, and well, at least on that night, they got some happy endings. Unfortunately, the next chapter of those stories were not good at all. We're not good at all, because let's talk about the aftermath of this WrestleMania, this very long WrestleMania, because, oh man, 2019, from there on out, oh boy, it was very bad. It was so bad. And yes, I kind of kept engaged with it very barely, but dude, when I saw when I was looking highlights during this period, it's oh my God, what are they doing? What are they freaking doing with this show? Because when you look at the short-term effects, all three major champions, whether it's Seth, Becky, or Kofi, some of the worst follow-ups I've ever seen as a wrestling fan. Whether it's by bad booking, or the wrestlers themselves, or just a combination of both. When you look at Seth Rollins, he had a best of the best feud with AJ Styles. No substance in that story at Money in the Bank. And then he went on to have a 3-match pay-per-view feud with Baron Corbin that was boring. Boring as all hell. That eventually involved Lacey Evans. So that also brought in Becky Lynch too. You remember that Extreme Rules mixed tag team match at Extreme Rules? Oh boy. Oh God. And then speaking of Becky, yeah, she did not have a good reign either. Because it soon exposed her gimmick. I'm the man. The man comes around. It basically exposed her character as one-dimensional. I'm on the top of my game. It's where's the substance? It's use these Stone Cold saying, Austin 316 says I'm on top. I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin says I'm the man. 316. No, Becky didn't add anything to her gimmick during that time period, because basically throughout this, she feuded with Lacey Evans all summer, and there's a story now that saying, "Oh, I didn't want to feud with any of these unproven talent." It's bro, yeah, it's Vince's fault that it's Vince's fault that she didn't have competitors ready for them. It was kind of the same issue with Eddie Guerrero going into his WWE title reign, but at the same time, it's you have to work with what you have. At the same time, if you're Becky, don't be unprofessional about it. You gotta try to work around it. So she didn't even have the belt. She didn't even have one of the belts for a long time. She dropped the SmackDown Women's Championship a month after her reign started to Charlotte and Bayley, because Bayley cashed in her Money in the Bank contract on Charlotte at the next pay-per-view. And then, oh boy. Man, when you talk about ego, you look at Seth and Becky during 2019. And I know at least Becky, as a person, she's owned up to it. And so has Seth. So, I can't go too hard on them now. I shouldn't go too hard on them nowadays. But I will go. I do always go hard on their characters, because it's always about their characters at the end of the day. But as as individuals, off screen, their actual off screen persons, we leave that out. But man, in 2019, 5 years prior, they were in over their head. They were egomaniacs. They would, especially Seth. Becky, that was more so when she started as the man. But Seth, though, in that summer, oh my God, dude. It was so bad. He was repping the company like the wrong way. He would get into random Twitter arguments with wrestlers outside of the company and with random fans. It's like, this is not how you do it, dude. This is not how you're supposed to represent as a world champion. And it was just brutal. It was like he was like doing his own character assassination right here. Meanwhile, for Kofi Kingston, like I said, he was not that, he was like not necessarily a bad world champion in terms of like character. I mean, he also exposed some of his like other flaws, but he was just mainly the victim of bad booking, bad feuds, a long feud with Dolph Ziggler, and then his reign just went on for too long. I felt like it should have ended against Randy Orton. I think he feuded with Randy Orton, yes. He should have lost the title to Randy Orton during that summer. By the time it ended very embarrassingly at the hands of Brock Lesnar on the debut episode on Fox of SmackDown. And now, right after, he went back straight to the tag team division. I remember watching it with my friend Sam. He said, like, the moment that match happened with Brock and Kofi Kingston, like 8 seconds later, we were shouting, buried. And yeah, he got buried straight back to the tag team division. So it's like, yeah, he never got another world championship match after that. And then when you look at the long-term effects of this, and yes, I know it's only been 5 years since this event happened, but man, were there so many long-term effects from this? Because when you look at the TV ratings for the WWE, man, did it tank? Did it tank right after WrestleMania? Throughout the next 3 weeks after WrestleMania, the TV ratings for Raw sank downwards, 200 to 300,000. And yes, they would have a couple, like, it went from 2.5 million, and they were already slowly declining, but from the first week of April after WrestleMania, from the end of April to early May, they lost over 300,000 viewers. They were like at the 2.1s to 2.2s and nearing 2s, just flat 2s. That's very bad. They were like on the verge of 1.9. That was the only sign of things to come. And yes, they would break 2.5s a few more times in 2019, but it's just like the general quality of the show really started to dip even further. Like as we get into 2020, and oh boy, let's not start about the pandemic, man. The pandemic really started to expose just how bad the shows were, as the ratings just started to go down and down and down. And I know some people say, it's not always about the TV ratings, but yeah, how do you get network deals done? You tell me that. And then as for WrestleMania itself, well, this was the last one to be held on a single night. And this WrestleMania is why I dread it. This is why I dread this WrestleMania so much, because I blame Vince for this. I respect Vince McMahon, but this WrestleMania was very not very bad, but it's just like, there was so much long term that I dislike him for it. I dislike this for him because not everyone needs to be on the card. Like, Vince saw a need to stack the card ever since WrestleMania 31. It's just like, my God, WrestleMania 31 is like the last great WrestleMania for me, because you didn't have, like, you still managed to get a couple people on the card. Like, you still managed to get almost like the right amount of people on the card. And, it was still at 4 hours. It was still at 4 hours. It was the right balance of around 7 to 8 matches, including the pre-show. And everyone went home at a good time. But you have this show. And it ended at what? I'm not sure what it was on the East Coast. It was like what? 1 or 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I imagine. And they had trouble getting home. People had trouble getting home, report apparently, because the people running the trains, the transit, they already left. They had left, and they had to come back because, well, it went past the closing time. So the length of the show and the quality of matches, as well as, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, it resulted the next WrestleMania and the WrestleManias that we have now, it became a 2-night affair. So, yeah, I blame this WrestleMania for the format that we have right now for the WrestleManias that we have now. Now, some of you may like the new 2-night format, but for me, as someone that has experienced both firsthand, like 2 nights ain't it. Like, I mean, I liked last year's WrestleMania, like with the quality of the show, but I prefer the 1 night. It should be like I said, it should be like Mania 31, a 1-night card with the best of the best, the storylines coming to a head, the right amount of matches, the right amount of wrestlers. But I don't know. I guess you have to have these 2 nights just to get everyone on the card, make it a participation award. But even as we speak, Triple Nose can't even get several key active wrestlers on this 2-night WrestleMania 40. Like, he couldn't even get like key wrestlers like Chad Gable, like, on the card. Like, what are we doing? Like, he couldn't get Chad Gable, Tiffany Stratton on the card. Liv Morgan on the card. Like, what are we doing here? Like, if you can't even run a 2-night WrestleMania with some of these wrestlers on the card, it's like, oh, well, not everyone can be on WrestleMania, which is true. But it's like, if you can't even do that right, like, imagine trying to do a 1-night WrestleMania. And these kind of wrestlers are missing on the card. Oh, you would get even more backlash. It's like, again, 1-night WrestleMania, 7-8 matches, including the pre-show, I guess. But that's just the right amount. Like the 3 Bears. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. But unfortunately for this WrestleMania, this had no balance whatsoever. And that led to what we have now, the format of this WrestleMania. 2 nights, and, well, everyone trying to get on the card. Unfortunately, for this WrestleMania 40, yeah, still having trouble trying to get people on the card. So overall, with WrestleMania 35, I don't know, man. I can't recommend any matches other than the WWE Championship match. And I guess Elias's musical performance with John Cena interrupting it. And I guess if you like Becky Lynch's big title win that solidified her as the man of the women's division, even though we know what happened a year later with her pregnancy. But it was good for her though, with having a kid in her life. But with this WrestleMania, I really can't pinpoint anything memorable out of this 20 match card show that went 7.5 hours long. That includes the pre-show. Yes, this WrestleMania set the record for the most matches at 20 matches and the longest runtime of 7.5 hours. Again, I blame this WrestleMania. I blame Vince. And again, I as much as I respect Vince for what he's done in the wrestling business, this was one of his worst decisions. Making this WrestleMania long as hell, and it led to WrestleMania becoming 2 nights. This was torture to go through. Like, even at 2 times speed. I did it for you guys, though. I did it for you guys. I wanted to, give you guys a retrospective of this WrestleMania. But, man, this is probably the most brutal retro review I had to do. I almost froze, figuratively, doing this retro review. And what made it even worse is that this event was key to WWE tanking in quality, slowly but surely, for the next 5 years. And no, some people say, "Oh, we're in a wrestling boom now." But financially, business-wise, but the on-screen product is still very lacking. It's severely lacking. Now, I get it. It's obviously not as long as this WrestleMania, but as many of you are watching, or I know it's already done with, but are you due for a similar show in quality with this WrestleMania 40? Are you? So something to point out. So once again, there's barely anything to revisit from the longest yet most boring WrestleMania of all time. Yes, I say most boring. I know there's others out there like WrestleMania 9 or WrestleMania, I don't want to say WrestleMania 25, that's pushing it. WrestleMania 9, WrestleMania 11, or WrestleMania 4. Yeah, this WrestleMania, it's the most boring because it's so long. And like I said, I can't pinpoint like more than two things out of this show, this very long show, that you need to go back and watch. Like, I got nothing for you. I have nothing for you. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on this WrestleMania 35, this very long 35th WrestleMania in the WWE history of this show, in the comments below on YouTube, and on a message on social media on X and Instagram. Send that my way at Very Cold Lasagna. Leave me your memories from 5 years ago. I know 5 years ago seems like a blur, but it went by pretty fast, ladies and gentlemen. We've survived 5 years that has passed us by since 2019. Yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts and your memories from WrestleMania 35. And I forgot to mention the terrible stage design. Like, holy crap. What was that? The current stage setup we have now with Raw and SmackDown. Like, oh my God, that was so bad. So terrible. Like, my good Lord. But anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, episode number 196 of this icy yet spicy podcast. That is Very Cold Lasagna. I'm your host, DylanLasagna, wrapping up another retro review, closing the old icebox, finally out after this unofficial end to this unofficial WrestleMania week retro review series. We've done WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 25, and now we wrap it up with WrestleMania 35. So anyway, let me know again your WrestleMania memory from out of the 3 WrestleManias that we've done retro reviews on in the last 3 episodes, and yeah, let's have a conversation about it. But for now, keep those lasagnas very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until the next episode, until the next time we see each other, peace out.